Okay, so I got another game here, again against an unknown random opponent at the $30 hypers. Again, the previous match was also a $30 hyper, so keeping it pretty simple and basic. Unknown opponent, first hand of the match. I'm going to move my mouse out of the way. Okay, so first hand of the match, 10-5 suited. So my opponent goes in and makes a normal pre-flop raise, and I 3-bet 10-5 suited. I think a lot of people at this stake tend to be pretty tight calling 3-bets or folding to 3-bets or 4-bet shoving in general. So I just don't find that people play well against 3-bets pre-flop. Whether they call too wide and then fold too much on the flop, which I think is probably where you get all your value from, or most of your value from. So actually, on that note, don't get discouraged if you're 3-betting out of position and your opponent's calling a lot. So when you're looking at your HUD and you see like, okay, versus a 3-bet, he's calling, let's say this number was 80. Sorry, it was 20. He's calling 80% of my 3-bets. I'm going to stop 3-betting. I'm going to only 3-bet for value, right? That's the common adjustment. But I think what's more important is to understand that what he's doing post-flop. So if he's folding a lot to continuation bets in 3-bet pots, for example, then keep 3-betting. It's okay to 3-bet wide, get called wide. If our opponent isn't fighting back and he's folding a lot on the flop or on the turn to a barrel, then you're building big pots out of position. However, you're taking all these pots away from him on the flop. So don't get discouraged simply from the fact that he's calling my 3-bet, so I'm going to only 3-bet value. You need to know that most of your value from pre-flop 3-bets come from your opponent calling too wide pre-flop and folding too much and being too tight on the flop. So I raised a hand like 10-5 suited because I kind of like 3-betting these hands once in a while against the right person, because I find it doesn't play too bad against his calling range. So when he calls me with value like King Queen, Ace 10, sorry, not Ace 10, that's actually pretty bad for us. Ace Jack, Ace Queen, Ace King, all these big value hands, I feel like we play pretty decent against them. And like I said, I just find that people play too wide pre-flop and too tight on the flop. And I think we could get some pretty decent value. Especially the first hand of the match, I think people will be even more tight in these kind of spots. So I figure why not give it a shot here with 10-5 suited. And my opponent folds, so we take it down. Again, if he would have called, it wouldn't be the end of the world. We're not shutting down just because we get called. I mean, like I said, all our value comes from post-flop. Ace King, we're going to stay on track here with a pre-flop raise. My opponent folds, and we take down that pot. Ace 8 out of position. I decided to just shove here. Again, it's the third hand of the match. We have shown so much aggression, right, in the first few hands. First hand, we 3-bet out of position. Second hand, we make a pre-flop raise and take it down. Third hand now, he's raising again, and we're shoving. So I think Ace 8 is pretty close. I think against a recreational, it's going to be a shove either way. But especially against this guy now that it's third hand in a row that I'm showing crazy aggression, I think he's going to also open up his calling range a little more than usual. And if he doesn't, we'll still take down this pot. And we get called. Flop an ace, which is great. Run out isn't the best. And he shows Ace 6 suited. So we had him pre-flop, but he got a great flop, turn, and river. So, okay, we didn't lose yet, right? We're still in this match. Again, focus on getting it in good. That's all that matters. So we have 6 big blinds, Jack 9 offsuit. I just shove, turn a 9, and we got it in great, and we double up. I just love doubling up the hand right after losing a big pot. So encouraging. Ace 8 out of position. Now, this would have been a shove if my opponent limped in. If he would have raised, I would have shoved as well, and if he would have shoved, I would have called. Pretty simple with Ace 8 for 12 big blinds. 8-9 offsuit. We're getting up there again. We're slowly climbing back into this match. We're about 12.5 big blinds. I like limping in here with 8-9 offsuit. I just don't like raising and folding to a shove. I'd rather limp in here and potentially call a raise out of position. I think playing in position is so important so important. Like, it's incredibly powerful playing in position. People are so bad in limped pots, especially after the flop, that it's so important to be playing limped pots against bad players. So when you have a hand that you're unsure of, just limp. It's going to make things so much easier, because then most players will check back, and that will happen. Well, not that, but most players will check back, they'll check the flop, we'll bet the flop, and we'll take it down. That's going to be so frequent. People are so tight that a lot of times you can just take pots away from them in limped pots. So keep that in mind. In this situation, I did go ahead and make a bet here, try to take down this pot. We do have outs. I mean, any 6, any 10. But we get raised so big here that I just decided to fold. I think that's such a value raise that I'm pretty much going to have to invest my stack in this hand. I don't see myself having fold equity here, so I can't even semi-bluff, because I think he's going to be snapping me off here pretty much 100% of the time. And I think I'm up against a pair or better, probably a pair here. And I don't really know that my 8 or 9 is open, so I just let it go. $10.5 big blinds, 10-8 suited. My opponent just folds, gives us a free pot. You see, and that's basically what I mean. Like, instead of folding, if we were villain here, instead of folding, if you would just limp in, most players are not going to be attacking your limps constantly. If they are, then obviously you need to adjust and you need to change your approach. But if you're able to limp in all your trash instead of folding it, you're gonna win so many chips post flop because of it, that I think it's such an important aspect to hypers that a lot of people neglect. Like half a big blind is so important that if you're just throwing it away for free here, then especially against an opponent who hasn't really shown the willingness to attack your limps, then you're just losing so much money in the long term. If he would have limped here, chances are I would have checked back my 10-8 suited, and we'd have seen a flop, and he would be in position, right, in a limped pot. So it would be such a good situation for him, instead of just folding and giving me free chips, pretty much. So try to limp in your trash hand instead of folding them. And now it obviously depends against who you're playing, I should add. I mean, if you're playing a reg who's very strong, and you struggle with him because you don't know, he's been aggressive, he's been tricky, and he attacks your limbs, and then in limp pot he also check raises a lot of flops, then obviously you can start making some folds. It's going to be much less profitable to play weak or trash hands against him because he's so difficult to play against. But I'm saying against your regular, unknown, I shouldn't say the word regular, but against your classic, unknown, recreational player, then go ahead and limp and try to outplay him post-flop, or especially in limp pots, I should say. So as I'm saying this, obviously I fold trash. I should have probably limped in here. My opponent hasn't shown a willingness to attack my limps. Our sample is really small, however, he hasn't really done it. So next time I'd probably correct myself here. Why not, in this self-review, to limp in, Michael. Limp in there. So I should have limped and just try to take this pot from him later. Jack 6 offsuit, again around 10 big blinds, and again he gives me a free pot, so I'll take it. Queen 10 suited, 11 big blinds. I'm going to raise here. I think Queen 10 suited plays very well post flop, and at this point, if you're raising Queen 10 suited for 11 big blinds, I don't think you should be folding to a shove here. So if you raise fold, this is really bad. If you're planning on raising and folding to a shove, do not raise Queen 10. Limp in and call. But I think at this point, if you're raising, you're planning to raise and call. So I raise, my opponent calls, we see a flop, pretty dry, king high board. He checks. I go ahead and make a very small c-bet here. I think we can save some chips by making our c-bets a little smaller when we're so short on chips, and especially as the blinds move up, you don't need to keep continuation betting 50%. So I go ahead and make a small continuation bet, and my opponent shoves. So he's been playing kind of aggressive post flop, especially on the flop in both limp pots and raise pots. I've been getting check raised a few times, and hasn't really been making it easy for me to just continuation bet and take down pots. So I do have Queen 10 with a backdoor flush draw, potentially 2 live cards. So I basically have 2 bigger cards in the 5. but I'm just going to hand it to him here and fold this hand. I just don't like calling there with queen high. It's unfortunate though, just based on the way the hand was played. So again, we got to adjust and take notes on how our opponent is playing and how we could adjust our play based on that. So against this guy, maybe I won't be limping in so wide because he hasn't been making it easy for me on the flop. Maybe I'm going to be limping in some more value hands so that I don't have to be creating bigger pots on the flop with marginal hands and having to c-bet with air and then getting check raised. Maybe I'm going to be checking back more flops, right? So these are all adjustments we could make. Oops. So king 3, my opponent folds, 5 big blinds. I'll take that again. 10 deuce for 5 big blinds, it's just going to be a fold. Ace 4, out of position, my opponent folds again. So he's been pretty tight here. If he would have shoved, obviously I would call. If he'd limp, I'd shove myself. If he'd raise, I'd get it in as well. 10-3 for 5 big blind, 5.5 big blinds is going to be a fold. So right now I'm in pretty much push or fold mode. I'm not trying to do anything too fancy here. So yeah, you're going to see me folding a little more than usual, but when I'm in push fold mode, I'm not really limping in much, especially not against an opponent like this. I'm pretty much following push fold, and if I have a hand that I'm going to shove with, I'm going to shove, and if not, trash hand like 10 deuce, I'm just going to fold. Oops. My opponent raises 5-7 offsuit for 5 big blinds. It's just a fold. So we're not really getting much here, and when we do, our opponent doesn't give us any action. So just got to be patient and stick to what we know. 9-7 suited for 4 big blinds, a shove, and we win the pot. 7-3 off is going to be a fold. Kind of boring here towards the end. Not much going on. A lot of folds. Not many hands to play. 8-3, same thing. 5-4 suited for 3.5 big blinds. My opponent shoves, and I'm going to call. Flop a 5, turn a 5, great. Yay! Nice little double up, we'll take it. 5-4 suited, why not? Very next hand, pocket 2s for 7 big blinds, pretty standard shove. Oh, we get snapped. Hopefully we're in a flip and we hold. Doesn't look good there. Oh, and we don't even share the pot. So he had ace 4. So we lost pretty much a coin flip there. And that's it. So we lose a match. But again, this was a match against someone who's a little trickier. So I'm not too sure I adjusted all too well. There are going to be moments where you get stuck playing this default strategy, I call it, because you're so used to playing it and you play like 40-50 matches a day and you get stuck into this like robotic mode. So that's why it's important to review the match or review your play sometimes. Not every day, you don't have to. I mean, you don't want to invest all that much time. You do want to be able to have time to play as well. But when you do self-reviews, you start noticing things that you might not have noticed in-game. Like here, I might have just been like, oh, okay, whatever, I just didn't make too many hands, or I lost the flip at the end. I could have easily been back in this match, or made up a bunch of excuses, or just not thought of it because I've been playing another match at the same time. But when you look back, you start to see like, okay, this guy kind of gave me trouble on the flop. Now did he run good and he had value and my folds were good? Maybe. Or was he just aggressive and gave me problems post-flop? We don't know, right? So definitely it's hard to come up to concrete answers like that after one match against someone. But if I were to play this guy again, for example, if he accepted my rematch here, I would have had those thoughts in the back of my head saying, okay, I need to adjust versus this guy on the flop. He does like to check raise. And how can I do that? And definitely consider prior matches or prior notes. And talking about notes, I think it's extremely important to make notes on opponents. So go ahead and in-game, go ahead and mark notes on your opponent. Say check raises flops. Doesn't let me, it isn't as tight in limped pots. So it doesn't let me just c-bet or attack limped flops in position. He does check raise. Same thing with same thing in raise pots. And I think it's important to note that his check raise were on pretty dry boards. So keep that in mind, because if it was on this flop, Jack 9-8, sorry, 10-9-8, and he check raised me, it could mean something completely different than if he raised me on King Deuce 4 off, right? So keep that in mind. Definitely add that to your notes as well. Say check raised on dry board, because if you see that he keeps check raising you on dry boards, and you know that dry boards are great spots for check raised bluffs, then likely he's bluffing, or he's trying to be a little fancy against you, right? So he's doing that pretty wide. So definitely make notes of that. So when you see it reoccurring, you could take advantage of it. Whereas if he's only check raising you on wet boards, then he might be a little more weighted towards value or semi bluffs, compared to if he check raises you on king deuce 4 off, he might be a little more weighted to air, right? So keep that in mind as you go along. I hope you guys enjoyed these 2 videos. I hope it's helped in some way or another. Feel free to comment and let me know how, if I can help you with any issues you've been having, or if there's any questions on this video, feel free to comment. I'd love to go ahead and clarify a few things if need be. So other than that, I wish you guys all the best of luck. I'm glad to be back, and I'll see you guys at the tables. Later.